This is it. Welcome to the Happy Russell journey. Thank you for being here with me on my journey. This is episode 1 with Scott Hendrie. If you saw the introduction video, then I advise you to try and check out his music so you understand about what we're going to be talking about. If you haven't had a chance to listen to his music, maybe click the pause button. Just have a quick listen to the album Welcome to the Greys. Listen to things like Dust in a Vase, Free Time and X Factor. That will really help you sort of understand what we're going to be conversing about over the next, I think it's about 45 minutes or an hour. If you don't feel like, looking at me and Scott on our beautiful faces during this conversation, what you can do is you can just put your phone or whatever you're using to listen to us with to one side and do the washing up and just listen to our beautiful voices serenade you as you do your housework. I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to let the rest of the conversation do the talking. Fullmarx, aka Scott, welcome to the Happy Russell journey.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to start off, you've just released an album called Population Sum, and one of the first things that you bring up in that is like this eerie sort of introduction to it, and then you tell the listener to wake up. You don't have to open your eyes, just wake up. I'm very interested to find out what you mean by that.
Well, I guess the theme for this second album is basically to congratulate and thank everyone who understood what I was saying in the first album. So the scene that I painted in my mind for that intro to the second album was that people are literally sort of waking up in my crazy imaginary paradise, if you will. So it just sort of rolled off the tongue, but it does have a poignant kind of profundity to it that I'd like to say was forethought, but it wasn't. It was almost like the literal, like, wake up here in this place, and then it just came like, don't open your eyes, because I'm not asking you, I'm not saying that you're asleep or in a dream. I need you to be aware of where you are and what your potential is. So that was the kind of deeper meaning between that, don't open your eyes, but wake up. I guess that kind of message is one that is deep in just conversation with me. I'm asking people to kind of question their foundations a little bit. I think if you don't do that, then you're lending yourself to naivety. So yeah, I guess I was hoping people would do what you've done and go, oh, what's he mean wake up, without shutting my eyes. It's about awareness, isn't it?
Right. I was listening to some, I can't remember who it was, but I'm not enlightened in any sense of the meaning, but the way that they sort of explained enlightenment was to be in light, was to see. If you're not enlightened, you're in darkness. I guess that waking up is a sense of seeing things for how they really are, right?
That's the way I kind of mean it, without understanding everything that you just said fully, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it myself. This is why I'm doing this sort of show, to sort of see what other people's perspectives are, to sort of get rid of all of the weeds, and to see where people find fulfillment and meaning. And you've done that through your music.
For sure, yeah.
So what to you? I guess Population Sum is a freaking awesome album, but a lot of it comes from your previous album, Welcome to the Greys. And you go through songs like Dust in a Vase, which I thought, I listened to that like 50 times over and over again, because Excellent. Dust in a Vase really highlights sort of the conditioning, let's say, that a lot of people find themselves stuck in. So can you tell me, was that in the song Dust in a Vase, you said that was an actual conversation you had with your mate? Is that real?
That's very, very real, yeah. So when I was writing that first album, obviously there's lots of lyrics and lots of things to put in.
Is episode 1.
My process with the two of them, well, Population Sum and Welcome to the Greys are 1 and 2 of a trilogy. The third part is yet to be released. It's yet to even be properly worked on. I've got the concept and I've got what I would consider the core of the message already in ideas, but I haven't got to work on them yet. That's to come. But the last one is called All Good Things Here Are Free. So you've basically got welcome to the Greys, population sum, good things here are free. That's when you stand back and you've got just the titles, that's essentially my message. Like, welcome to where things are not exactly what they seem, nothing is sure. And then it's like, congratulations to the people who are here, because it used to just be me and now there's you guys. And then the last one is the statement that good things here are free. Like, so it's going to be more centered around our obsession with money and the way we place value in the wrong things. But to come back to your question, sorry for going on a tangent, I've got a very good friend called, I call him Yoshi, his name's Joshua Prindeville, amazing DJ's doing a lot right now with BBC One Extra, and Jaguar Worldwide is playing his stuff, and he's started a label, and he's on this mission, like releasing a single a week. And he's a good friend of mine who, we come from the same beginnings, humble beginnings, and we're both striving for the same sort of result, but in slightly different avenues of the industry. But he's kind of a deep thinker, and his perspective on life is unique in that his sort of background and upbringing has been a lot rougher than mine, in losing his mum and losing his dad. Like, he's had a lot more hardship to overcome, and he just does it piece of piss. So with that song, I was not sure of a concept, but I had the music, which I know I wanted to use for the album, but wasn't exactly sure what I was going to say with the tune. And I was having a bit of a down day, moaning about being at work and not getting time to do this, as quite a sort of running theme. And yeah, Yoshi was like, bruv, stop fucking moaning about it. Like, we're all dust in a vase one day. Like, you're going to die at the end of this. Like, don't be miserable right the way through it. And it's something that, in other words, I've said to him on his down day. We kind of do that back and forth for each other, as friends do. And that one just went dink. As soon as he said it, dust in a vase, I was like, oh, bro, that is a song. And then it was like, I know where I'm putting that. And it was really easy to write, because I just had to tell the story of a conversation I had. Do you know what I mean?
I think because it's like a genuine story, or a genuine conversation that you've had with a friend, it has its own profundity to it as well. Like, that one really resonated with me, and I could understand that and understand the message behind it.
Yeah, no doubt you've had a similar conversation with a friend of yours.
No doubt, yeah. But would you say that your mate Joshua is, he's definitely had a rougher time than you have. Do you think that sometimes going through certain hardships can sort of lead people towards this deeper sense of realization of, what's going on, what the bigger picture is?
100%. In his particular case, I can't say that it's made him, but he changed when his mum died, because what was truly important to him was his happiness after seeing his mum have quite a sort of slow, painful way towards her end. He very much adopted an attitude, and I do feel like she said words and things to him to instill in him like what was really important in life. So I've had the benefit of being able to learn from his experience. Obviously I've had some of my own hardships, but I can't imagine what it would have been like losing my mum when he lost his, or losing my dad when he lost his. Like, both of mine are still around, and they're a big part of my support network. So I'm very, very grateful. His life shines a light on mine and makes me think, like, if he can have the attitude he's got after all of that shit, I've got no excuse to ever be down, really, because if you weigh the two things up, like, I've had a silver spoon in my mouth in comparison. Yeah. So he's an inspirational guy, and I know that he feels the same about me. We get together and we jam about music, and I'll come up with a little lick, and he'll be like, wow, our passions kind of help each other to burn, you know what I mean? But yeah, he's got this resolve and this work ethic that without the hardship, if his mum and dad were still around looking after him, it might not have found that zeal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so going to you and your personal experiences with, let's say waking up or seeing the bigger picture, was there a certain point in your life when you sort of, had this moment of realization that, we're being sort of conditioned into this wake up, go to work, contribute, wait till you retire, done kind of deal? And what was that like for you when you realized that?
For me, the realisation was slow, but it started young. I remember the first time I kind of looked at the people who were around me that I identified as teachers or, role models, and began to think, they don't know what they're doing either. You know what I mean? Like, I was young, maybe 11, and it kind of started because my mum's family are massive. My mum's Liverpudlian. Her mum had 11 kids, so she's got 5 sisters and 5 brothers, my mum. And they fucking gossip so much. Like, I used to, back in the days before mobile phones and all that, someone phoned the house and they say, it's my Auntie Karen. Hello, Scott, your mum there? Put my mum on. For the next 15 minutes, I hear them have this conversation. The phone would go down, the next sister calls up, and she's obviously been on the phone at that time to another sister. And they would have the same conversation, but, very, very slightly different nuances. Then that would go down in another sister. So I used to hear the same conversation from as long as I was, able to understand conversation until about 11. I was hearing this all the time. I was like, this is bollocks. Like, what are they doing? Like, they waste so much time talking the same shit. Really, the message only needs to be passed from one to the other, not reconversated by 5 or 6 of them. And it definitely made me look around at everything then and think, like, people are doing things that I don't agree with and I don't quite get. But it wasn't until leaving school that the whole work cycle and the fucking tax laws and everything else just started to ring like, right, someone's creaming off of my effort all day, every day. And yeah, fast forward another 10 years where I'm actually in the workforce. I'd had a limited company, been a sole trader and trying to fit into it in terms of having a trade and trying to earn a living and stuff. And it was like, it's fucking bollocks, man. It's big time bollocks. So it's been a long, slow realisation that only gets deeper and deeper. But I think by the time I got to my mid-20s, I was ready to kind of put my take on it into my music, because I've always been into music and making music, but didn't really know. I wasn't an artist, if you can call me one now. Didn't have much personality with it. I could sing a song or I could cover Oasis or Coldplay and entertain a few people at the pub, but myself started getting poured into my music almost as a vent, because most people I couldn't have this conversation with and be like, bro, this conspiracy or this law means this, and your birth certificate means that you're robbed of your sovereignty, and people don't want to hear that. So I had to put it somewhere that was kind of there couldn't be necessarily a back and forth. I could say everything I wanted to say and finish all my points and go, bosh, there's that. And then people like yourself can take it or leave it, can't they?
Well, that is why I've been drawn to your music in the first place, because I feel like music that's good, or music that people can really relate to, is when a part of the artist is poured into it, and you've given yourself, whether people like it or not, your 2 pence on what you think is not necessarily wrong with the world, but what you're observing, let's say. And I think that speaks true to a lot of people, and it's extremely relatable when people see that. And then when you are giving your own sort of personality in your art form, that comes across as way more sincere and relatable as well. So it's been a real treat listening to music, I've got to say. I'm hoping that quite a few more people will listen to you, just not to promote you and promote your business, but to promote your ideas.
Of course, yeah.
And I'm not saying you got the right ideas either, but you're thinking about it. Yeah, and that's nice. That's right. It takes people away from their 9 to 5, their normal boring life, gives them something deeper to think about. With that being said, I had a really good thought, and now it's gone. I know, it's all right. I can cut that out. I can cut that. I can edit it. No, so going back to your music, waking up. It's gone. And I am going to cut a lot of this out because now I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, this is the beauty of it, though, isn't
I know. See, I can't do live.
it? You'll practice till you can, though, bruv. Eventually, you'll have your shit organised, won't you? This is the whole process.
One day, well, yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. So going back to your music and your career, let's say you find out you've got one more year to live.
Yeah.
Would you say that what you've done so far is a success, as you would define success, or do you feel like there's more that you need?
Right now, I'm at a point in my life where I've got this 2-year-old who I absolutely adore, and I wish I could be with him every minute. But to make sure that everyone around him and the whole thing works, I have to go to work for most of the time that he's awake in the day. And that does bug me, and for the last couple of years, it's been getting me down, like to the point where I was depressed about it. Not violently or having real sort of dark thoughts, but just deflated, slightly melancholy, and not being productive whatsoever. And I came out the other side of it just in time to realise, like, this album that you're listening to, which I've had it since 2017 virtually all done. There's maybe 2-3 things added over the next 3 years that have made it different, but otherwise it's been the same for almost 3 years. And I hadn't put it out because I was like, it's not good enough, I haven't said what I'm supposed to say, like I've lost the idea of my own concept. I was having a fucking crisis. And I'm now in a place where I want a load of money from what I've created, not because I'm greedy or because I want to have flash cars. I want to move somewhere really quiet and secluded where I can focus on what really makes me happy, which is my family and creating anything. I sat out in the garden last night for about 3 hours and made a beat that I'll probably never use, but for someone else it's fucking awesome, and it was giving me goosebumps, and in the garden just like raw, loving it. I got no intentions to use it, I don't know what it's for, but I just stumbled across the flow. And that's something that I used to do every night. I'd come home and I'd just get in the flow of creativity, and I'd make this for him or that for them or this for myself. Some stuff I throw away, some stuff I'm like saving that because it's amazing. But
why? Oh, quick
now,
question though. Why wouldn't you use it?
I guess there's certain elements of ego in this art that kind of dictate what you do and don't put out. Because I've got loads of songs that someone like Lewis Capaldi could sing, or a balladeer. I've got tunes that I've written in mind for a woman to sing, even where the lyrics are about a man, where I've had a perspective of an ex of mine that might have been wounded, and they're just little exercises in my own need to process thoughts or emotions that I don't really have intention of sharing with the world as Fullmarx, you know what I mean? And the thing...
Hold on, we cut out there, I'm really sorry. Can you... I got up to the bit where you said that you could write something for Lewis Capaldi.
Okay. I was just saying that I've got a load of songs that Lewis Capaldi could sing. They're more of that balladeer style. But I wouldn't necessarily record and release them as Fullmarx, because in my mind at least, Fullmarx is a certain feel or sound or whatever. So that's why I might not use it, but I still might. If I find an avenue for it, it's cool. What was going through my head, and what's been in my head for a long time, is to start and release music under an alias, because I like the idea of being free of everything that I've done before, and even hitting up all the labels and radio stations again with a new email account as if I'm something new, you know what I mean? That gives me a little kick.
So what you're saying is, like, Fullmarx and Scott are two different entities. They've got their own. They've got their own egos.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, definitely. Does that make me crazy? Like, I might end up sectioned after this podcast.
No, not at all. So I come from a figure skating background, and I do ice dance. And then when you're doing ice dance, it really helps the performance if you embody a different character.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from. That Fullmarx is very different to Scott. So
yes, it is.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's annoying sometimes because obviously I've got a relatively large following or decent following as Fullmarx, and most of that following came because of something that I wrote in a different character, which is Fathead. So if you've heard the song Sex Face or any of the dirty things that I've done, yeah, those songs were written about 10 years ago under a different pseudonym. I was Fathead Records. That was the name of my act. It's since become the name of my record label. But I've got so much material as Fathead that is sort of recognised.
Alright, I'm going to pause it right there, guys, because we had a little bit of a technical malfunction. Scott left his phone out in the window of his van, and the sun was so hot that it caused the phone to overheat and sort of have a little meltdown. We got it up and running again, so we're going to carry on with that shortly. But while I've got your attention, you're probably going to be saying or thinking something about, you know, my hair. That is because during the time it took to edit the film, or edit the conversation and post it, yeah, I got out into the sun a lot, and the sun sort of just bleached my hair slightly. That's my story, and I'm going to be sticking with it. Anyway, back to the conversation.
Sweet, man.
All right, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but just before it cut out, I was asking you if Fullmarx and your other label is Fatface.
So yeah, originally my name was Fathead.
Fathead.
That's my nickname. Fathead,
Right.
yeah.
So, in a way, they have their own egos, right? They have their own identities that you, as Scott, have to sort of delve into, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, they're kind of like names given to sides of my character, I suppose. Because Fullmarx is this kind of Marxist, believes no one really owns anything, and that I kind of wish we'd all start looking out for each other and doing what we can rather than getting what we can just for ourselves and our own. That's the base of my Fullmarx philosophy. Scott Hendrie has written a bunch of lovey-dovey songs that no one's ever heard, that are really like from the heart, that you might hear a Lewis Capaldi or an Adele sing, because there's an element of that in my character. Like, everyone can relate to some of those messages, just I have to put them out there. But Fathead, he's the dirty, filthy scoundrel who loves to be really articulate whilst being really rude. Yeah.
So it's like there are certain archetypes of your character, and you're finding ways to express those, but you can't mix them together. You don't think that Fullmarx and Fathead could join up?
Yeah, they have to, because what happened with the Lads Bible video, the Sex Face video going out, that got posted by my wife on my Fullmarx page, and it is me, it's Scott Hendrie as Fullmarx. That's what I was gigging that day. But if I could go back, I think I would have reclassified that as Fathead, so that now that's clearly separate from what's Fullmarx, but it's too late. So yeah, Fullmarx, as far as you guys are concerned who've listened to the albums, are either going to go, oh, he's got a bit dirty, or yeah, like you said, you'd heard the Sex Face thing first, right? And then got the rest.
Right. And I think you were saying something like people come to you hoping for Fathead, right?
That's right, yeah, and they find Fullmarx and maybe a bit disappointed. Not everyone's disappointed, but a lot of people are like, bro, where's that song? Like, I went all through your Spotify, I went all through your YouTube, I can't find it anywhere. Like, where the fuck? What's going on?
I've got to be level with you. I've got a horrible truth. I was disappointed.
Yeah, I bet you.
Because I heard Sex Face and I thought that was absolutely hilarious, and I looked you up and I just started scrolling through your songs. I was like, well, none of this is funny, none of this is amusing, and then I actually listened.
Okay.
And it was X Factor. I took them and I actually listened to it, and I was like, oh, actually, I think I prefer that over Fathead personally.
The other style.
Yeah.
It's deeper.
Right, and there's not a lot of that going around. There really isn't.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of music that, it's either really esoteric and, you don't really understand what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Or it's not deep at all. It's just, dipping your toe in the water and you don't really get anything from it. Whereas you actually pull people back and say, have a look.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, like a few people have asked me just recently, because I've done a couple of these, weirdly enough, about oh shit, where was I going? Sidetracked myself there. About, what did they ask me? What were we just saying?
We were on Fullmarx as a different persona.
Yeah. People have been asking me what they've been asking me.
I can edit this as well, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's fine. What was it? Shit. What did that girl ask me the other day? I was like, right, that's like, I guess, a more basic question. It might come back to me.
I was also saying about how a lot of artists, they either make it too complicated for you to understand, or they just make it so that you just dip your toe in the water, but don't actually make you think.
Here we go. Thank you. That was it. So they were asking me, like, kind of, why do I do it, or like, where do I get my reward? And obviously we touched on it earlier, like, it's not for monetary gain. I only want money to buy freedom away from the rat race. That's it. And once I've got enough to do that and I've bought my house, I'll be growing food, collecting my own water, and trying to live as naturally as possible. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to accrue enough money to buy that freedom. That's the world that we live in. But this, see what you're saying, like that little moment where you've gone, hang on a minute, there's something here, like the dude's saying something, that's where I get the biggest buzz. Aside from that moment where I've just created it and no one else has heard a thing, that I'm like, oh God, this is sick. Like, you know, I know I'm the only person who's heard this because it's just come to fruition in my mind. I get a real sick buzz then. But then people like yourself or anyone who's messaged to say, man, this means a lot to me, or to even ask a question like, how did you think of that, or whatever, makes you realise, like, right, these are the people who are like me, because they're fucking, and it makes you, that's where Population Sun was born, like, right, people are resonating with this shit, like, I'm almost shocked at it, and that's where the whole beginning, like, don't open your eyes, just wake up, because, like, you've done all this stuff, and you believe all these things, or you've listened to this message, and now you're here listening to the next lot. It makes me feel like I'm part of more of a community, you know what I'm saying?
That's it. And so Fullmarx actually comes from Marx philosophy, right?
Pretty much. It was actually, that kind of was a lucky happening as well, because when I actually coined the phrase Fullmarx, or coined the name Fullmarx, I'd never read any Marx theory, so it was, I used to get called it by my English teacher because I always aced his spelling tests. I never ever got one wrong, do you know what I mean? There was 100% every time. And he used to call me Mr. Fullmarx. There's Mr. Fullmarx, there's Mr. Fullmarx. Mr. Bowers, his name was. And that was not my first stage name, but it was kind of there. Like, oh, that's quite cool, Mr. Fullmarx. Mr. Fullmarx, I like that, always getting full marks. And it kind of just stuck. It especially stuck once I'd read some of the Marxist stuff, because I was like, I'm not a communist in the sense of fucking I want to, you know, I'm big up China or Russia or any of that stuff, but I miss the sense of community around me, and I definitely look at capitalism as a way to just keep the majority right down the bottom of the pyramid and fucking fluff the arseholes of everyone at the top.
Well, this is, I don't want to go into politics because I'm not a smart man, but I think you're onto something there, because personally I believe capitalism does give people, you know, the most freedom out of communism or Marxism, but the Marxist philosophy and the communist philosophy is about bringing people together. So if you can achieve that through a capitalist society, then you've aced it.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't force people to be kind to each other. It's something that they've got to realise for themselves, and there's nothing wrong with, you know, growing our own vegetables and sharing them with our neighbours.
Of course,
we can all do that.
Yeah.
You know?
It'd be
So
nice
I think that's
to,
really cool that you came across that.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if Susan from across the fence give you a bunch of carrots and you give her a cabbage and cheers, love? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's great. And I know that's not going to solve most of society's problems. And yeah, I'm not saying that communism is the best alternative to capitalism, or that capitalism is necessarily a bad thing. I just feel like it's been given too much freedom to capitalise on whatever it wants, even if that means people suffer, environment suffer, it doesn't matter as long as shareholders and whatever are getting their profits. It seems to just be like, oh well, it's okay.
That is you're right. That is the downside to it. It is a machine.
Yeah.
In a sense that we are just another resource into it, but then when you do sort of wake up and realize it, then you can use it to your advantage.
That is true. Yeah,
you don't have to be stuck in it. You can get yourself out of it, which is what I think that you're on your way to do, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, and if I can enlighten one or two to the fact that there is an alternative, or that it doesn't have to be the way, that you just got to slot into society and have a job and get married and do all that stuff just because that's what you're supposed to do. There's a lot of dogma to the way our lives are structured, and I think maybe the anarchist in me is just, not that he's like a big part of my character, but definitely would like to draw awareness to people to just go, yeah, hang on a minute, this does whiff of bullshit a little bit sometimes. And, you know what I mean? Yeah. So for sure, that's the end goal. I think is to try to break this cycle and show my son that it's not necessary to be plugged into this whole monetary thing. I'd like to build a life that if he wants, he can just have. I don't know if you've seen a film called Captain Fantastic. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Oh, man, it's a great watch. It stars Viggo Mortensen and a few other like good actresses, but it basically follows a story of a man and wife. Well, when you join the story, the wife has just died, and this man and his 4 children basically live out in the arse end of nowhere, and they live off the land. So the 5 and 6-year-old boys run around with machetes and they're chopping wood and stuff. They all read poetry and they're really hyper intelligent, and they're self-sustaining. It's just an amazing, brilliant, like heartwarming film. But I'd said a lot of these philosophies of mine to my missus in the first year that we were together, and thankfully for me, she amused my craziness, enough for us to eventually like build an actual life together. But until she saw that film, she didn't quite grasp the why I thought like I do. Like I've got no intentions of actually running off to the woods because I don't know how to fucking live there. And I touch on that in the first album. But man, it's a dream of mine to go and live off the land and know my way around all the fucking leaves, which ones I can and can't wipe my arse with, what berries are safe to eat, all that stuff. I don't know anything about that, and it's in my power now to learn it, obviously. But why wasn't I taught all that at school, like how to actually live as a human thing that is natural to this world? Because all this money and cars and everything, it's not natural.
No. So let's say, right, you get £1 million. Do you take that up and just go find a little cottage and settle down? Like, is that you content, or is there still something you'll be doing with your time? Is there still more?
Oh, I would then be a creator full time. I could release an album a year probably, or maybe more music than that. I'd have time to go and make amazing videos, and do you know what I'm saying? Like, I've got so many things that I would love to do, but I don't have the time. Like, money's not even an issue. I'm quite resourceful. I've done all of the stuff that I have done on a very minimal budget, and it shows. It's not like super professional stuff, but it passes, and it's all me pretty much. I have to delegate certain jobs to certain people, which they obviously get paid for, but for the most part, yeah, I'm the driver of the shit. And I feel like if I had a paid for house with a bit of land on it and my studio's all set up, Mrs. has got the yoga studio next door, that is paradise for me. I'm a happy man, mate. You could strike me down and I know that then I've left a legacy of myself in music that will, as long as people are listening to it, it will have enough money to pay for its license again every 5 years. And yeah, it kind of immortalises me, so I could die knowing that my house is there, which is all paid for. My son and that can feed themselves and their families there if they want to build more. That's me content. Yeah,
so
definitely.
So even if you had the opportunity to go out, live in the middle of nowhere, you would still be an active participant in society. You'll still be giving back to the masses, so to speak.
For sure. I'd have time to read more things, which is going to mean I've got more insight to share with people who may or may not have read these things, or do you know what I mean? I can study and explore new concepts to me. I can have experiences that I currently haven't had. I haven't been able to just go and find a random wood and fish the stream, and like me and my boys lie there in the hammocks, like living like friggin' nomads or aborigines. But do you know what I mean? Like that's what I feel would make me happiest, because then it doesn't matter what shoes I'm wearing or if I've cut my hair or beard and all that shit. Like, it's me and nature back in symbiosis as it was intended by whatever created this place. If it was evolutionary chance or there is a divine after thing or something above us, then doesn't matter, because I'll be living pretty much as I was intended to. And I think that's where a lot of this anxiety, depression, all of this stuff has come from, like this fabrication that we live in. Like, I just don't quite get it. It's never really sat with me from young. But
yeah, you're fulfilling a role that's sort of been assigned to you, but not really who you are.
Yeah, assigned to me, not designed for me.
That's cool.
That's a cool way to say it. It's been assigned to me, but not designed for me.
That's cool. I like that.
You could find that in a track on album 3, just to let you know. I will give you a credit for artistic inspiration. It'll be somewhere in the metadata if I don't forget. Excellent.
I also want to go backtrack a little bit, because I can't remember where the audio cut out, but we were talking about how you've been sort of taken in by the system, and then the system sort of got you down. And I just wanted to know if there were any points when you were thinking of giving up your music career, or whether this is something that's embedded in you that you've got to pursue.
That's a great question, and the answer is both, because as I said before, the last couple of years I had after my son was born, I really struggled to see how I was going to keep all the plates spinning. And I realised a couple of years into it, or 18 months into it, like you're sitting around moaning about how you're going to keep the plates spinning and not spinning any fucking plates, Scotty. Like, sort your head out. And it's given me a massive kick up the arse, and I've really sort of found some drive. So yes, there's definitely been points where I've wondered, holy shit, like, what's the point? Like, I don't see an actual road to an end to it. So kind of like, what's the point in doing it? And you have all them insecurities of like, people aren't listening anymore, because my Spotify monthly listeners have gone from 10,000 down to 1,000 over the course of the years, just because I wasn't putting any friggin' music out. And yeah, I kind of got on a little bit of an ego down about it, I think.
I was going to say, ego comes into it. What if people don't like me? What if,
Yeah, is this album good enough? Are they going to get what I'm saying? Do I even know what I'm saying? Because some of the concepts are a little out there, and they take a bit of imagination to kind of get what I meant about them, I guess.
But then ego, I guess, is your worst enemy, because then you do convince yourself that you're not good enough, or what if people don't like it, and then you produce something. Okay, I know where I'm going with this now. So you've got your two different egos, right? You've got your Fullmarx and you've got your Fathead.
Yeah.
Fathead. I'm going to look him up later. And I'm going to take a stab in the dark here. You gain a lot more fulfillment from producing Fullmarx than you do Fathead.
Yes.
And I think you said earlier you feel that Fathead could have made you a lot of money, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So take us through your thought process. Why have you gone for Fullmarx over Fathead?
I think, around about the time that the Welcome to the Greys idea was conceived, which is like 2014. That seems so crazy saying that, it was that long ago, but that was when it was sort of conceived. I was going through a bit of a spiritual enlightenment myself. I got into meditation, and I was reading the likes of Dr. Sebi and Sadhguru and a bit of Eckhart Tolle. Like, I was really kind of...
He's crazy.
Yeah,
I've started reading his stuff, and that stuff in the ego blows my mind.
Yeah, well, I needed it at the time to realise, like, man, because I'd done a load of work as Fathead Records, and I had this album, a whole album, 15 tracks that I never ever put out, and this is all the Fathead character that I'm telling you about. Songs like Sex Face, I've got one called You're a Cunt, I've got one called Your Mother Loves Cock Slap Round Her Face, Suck My Balls, I'm a Player, I Ain't Going Home Yet, which tells the story of me going to the pub and getting sniffed up, and then going on a Larry one through town, having a fight with a bouncer, and going home with some chick whose boyfriend is at home, and end up, it's kind of like a, at the time, I'm like 22, 23 when I was writing it, it was just really fun. That's who I was then, if you know what I mean, or that was my idea of myself and who I wanted to be in music. Was this just Larry, like, yeah, I do all this mad shit, you're a cunt, your mum loves cock slap round her face, suck my balls, yeah. And people did love it, man. I was fucking famous around my town at that time. People were dying to come to shows to see me because it was just fucking hilarious, but it was all like music you could dance to and like bop to at a gig. And I wish I had the confidence then that I then gained years later when I put out the Greys thing, because I don't know, that's a sliding door that I wish I could just peek through and see what would have happened if I'd have really put it out and pushed it from then. Because the idea and the vision that I had, which I didn't want a deal, didn't want a record label, I never had intentions of signing a song to anyone. I had envision of just gathering this mass of people that were like, this gig is fucking sick, and taking them everywhere with me. And that's essentially what I'm trying to do now. So I didn't quite have the balls to follow it through then. I was very much in the system. I had a job to go to, and if there was a gig in the middle of the week somewhere far away on a Wednesday night, I would say no, because I got work on Thursday, so I was only earning £75, but in my head needed that £75 because I had a bill and I wanted this car and I wanted that phone, and do you know what I mean? It was all wrong. I didn't have the entrepreneurial idea. But what was the original question we were saying?
I can't even remember. I was just enjoying the little road we were going down.
We went down a rabbit hole. So I think the spiritual thing, that's what we were talking about, because I had a bit of I had a year or two where I was really like looking inward and looking at the esoteric elements of myself and my spirit, because there's this thing, like, there's more than this, fucking surely is deep in me, like it's been there since 11. Like, this is all bollocks. You lot talking, what you're talking about is actually not the meat of life. Like, why the fuck are we even here? That's all I wanted to talk about from 12 years old, and that conversation I didn't really get to have with anyone other than my dad until I was maybe 17, 18, and started smoking joints with people who were happy to just go down rabbit holes with me. Like, I think that's why I took so much to cannabis, because the people around me who were using it were open-minded enough to let me go on a mad rant about something that no one can ever prove or disprove, and just appreciate that at the end and go, wow, because it's, you know what I mean?
So what I'm hoping to do with some conversations down the line with a few other people, I think you're quite like these actually, because I'm trying to see if there are any objective truths in the metaphysical realm. So if there's something that we can objectively say, like there is purpose, or there is meaning. I at the moment I'm very on the fence. It's probably all subjective, and you've got to find your own purpose and your own meaning. You've got to do what you got to do. But yeah, it would be cool to sort of dig deep and see
to have that as a topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say that in order for you to be fulfilled as Fullmarx, that you've probably had to make some sacrifice? And what does that sacrifice mean to you? Like, is that a necessary part of growing, or?
To be Fullmarx, just elaborate a little for me on that. What do you mean, like as that character, like to the?
Yeah, you've gone down this road of Fullmarx rather than
the Fathead thing.
And it sounds like you gain a lot of fulfillment out of that as opposed to Fathead, but with that came sacrifice.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I think it was the right thing to put out when I sort of came of age to think, right, I've got the tools and the people around me and the know-how now to actually get a record into iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff, and to do some promoting and everything for it. So essentially act as a record label would. I that's all I wanted to say then, you know what I mean? If it was purely about money and everything, which it kind of, I sound like that's what I'm saying now, and maybe it is, because right now I do feel like that Fathead stuff is going to make me a mint from YouTube streams, and this is going to give me the freedom to then carry on doing Fullmarx stuff, and occasionally some funny stuff if there's a crowd of people who enjoy it. I think I'm now at peace with putting it out there, even as Fullmarx, and have people like yourself know that it's just a side to one character. You know what I mean? Rather than going through the motions of trying to set up Fathead. I've got a Fathead Records page, but I don't do a lot of stuff on it. Like, I'm not very active on there. But do you know what I'm saying?
I think a crossover would be quite cool, actually. I'd quite enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see both sides.
Yeah. It's happening, mate. It's happening. The next single that's coming out is Sex Face, and I'll send you the artwork in a minute, which I'm gonna put out very soon as a teaser. The video looks cool. And
this is the one that a lot of people have been waiting for.
It is, yeah. So I'm hoping that people will forgive me for it taking so long and just enjoy the fact that I've eventually got it out. And yeah, I'm gonna follow it up with a few of these other dirty ones. So Your Mother Loves Cock Slap Round Her Face. I genuinely believe, like, wholeheartedly, it will do 100 million streams, what I'm going to film and put up. And the tune itself is one that you'll send to your friends, or if you're on a stag do or something, it's going to be on the playlist, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and through that you're hoping that, you know, they see some of your other stuff and that there's something a little bit more to see, and that's awesome. Balancing it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because then you can take or leave it. If you don't like the other stuff, then cool. If you've got an ear and a minute to have a listen, then you might find that the character goes a bit deeper, and yeah, it's not all that I do.
I just want to finish up because I think we're getting close to time.
Yeah, I've got 7 minutes left on mine.
Awesome. I'm just going to quickly ask you then, when when are you most content with performing your music? Or sorry, I've sort of led that. Let's say when are you most content? This is really hard to phrase. I'm going to edit a lot of this, by the way.
Yeah, fair play.
In your music career, what points are you most content? Like, what points do you find, like, this is exactly what I want? Is it, like, as an example, is it when you're on stage, or is it when you're in the studio? Is it... Yeah, I'll let you finish.
There's been moments where I've been on stage like, yeah, this is it, man. But there's also been moments where I've been on stage and thought, I ain't fucking doing that again. Do you know what I mean?
Why wouldn't you like that? Like, that's...
There's just, you know, like, certainly where I live in Eastbourne, there's no proper music venues unless you go to, like, one of the big theatres to have a sound system and stuff that's suitable. So for most of my music, you'd want places that people could stand and have a boogie and a bop rather than sit down. Like, there's not going to be a violin on stage. You want to fucking dance around. It's not a concert per se. So you end up playing these, like, bars that have got fucking low rate sound systems and you can't hear yourself, so you're screaming. I come out of there, I'm like, oh fucking hell, my ears are bleeding, and you know what I mean? Like, it's horrific sometimes. So a lot of gigging in Eastbourne as Fullmarx kind of put me off gigging. But then I've done some gigs as Fullmarx. Like, I've supported Lucy Spraggan on a couple of tour dates in 2017. I played at Nottingham Rock City, which is a fucking smashing venue, at like 1400 capacity, and I played Birmingham O2 Institute, which is like 1100 capacity, and they were jammed both nights. And I'd never had clarity quite like it, so that's one of the moments when I was like, yeah, this is it, because by the time I finished that gig, which was like the easiest gig I'd ever played, I could breathe, I could hear my breath if I wanted to, do you know what I mean? So I just relaxed and enjoyed the songs, and probably sung as well as I've ever sung in front of anyone. And at the end of it, 1,000 lesbians, because she's got a massive gay following, we're all going, yeah, bro. It was epic. It was one of the probably highlights of my life, up there with my son being born and everything, and just the kind of glitz of going backstage and meeting Lucy, who'd seen on TV and I'd listen to her music and stuff, was all crazy. But to come back to your actual point, when am I most content? It's that moment that I was speaking about before, when I'm creating something brand spanking new, like I've started a project or I've had an idea and I start to make it and I hear it back, I'll spend probably however long it takes me to put the bones of it down, and most of the process with goosebumps. So it's like the most natural rush that I've ever come across, because it's like excitement and apprehension, and there's definitely a chemical, there must be something chemical going on, like I must get a huge hit of dopamine when I stumble across these things. So
Have you heard of Taoism?
Taoism, yes,
Yeah.
I have. Yeah.
So they say that there's something in Taoism that they call Wu Wei, which is translated as without action or without trying, and it's that's what you have there. That's that flow state that you get into when you
For sure.
and the artistry become one energy. It's like like, you know, you're not in a river flowing down, but you are that river. You and that music are just one thing being put together,
man.
and that's what I think is really cool about any sort of art form that people can sort of tap into.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm glad you experienced that, dude. That's it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I do feel like it's a gift that's been given to me, just to be able to feel it. There's a friend of mine who I've done a few songs with, 99 times out of 10 on my Spotify, he rearranged. I put the basic bones in and he played all the guitar and stuff. He's a genius, Dan Langham. And years ago when we first got in the studio together to record a few tunes, I've got 2 minutes.
Well, we can do it.
He said he was asking me about my songwriting process, and he asked me a question. He was like, "Do you feel sometimes like it's not you?" And I was like, "Fucking yes!" Like, yes, I do. I'd never thought about it like that, but it feels like sometimes that you just happen upon this thing that's already there, much like discovering electricity or fucking microwaves or whatever. Like it's there, like the next big leap in technology is there right now, we just haven't discovered it yet. And it very much feels like there's this ether that things just land in my head sometimes, and I'm like, that's a whole song, oh my god, right, it's crazy.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome. Right, we're going to leave it there. That's perfect. Thank you very much,
mate. Thank you very much, it's been beautiful, Luke. Thank you for having me.
Take care, buddy.
All the best, bro.
Done. I had a lot of fun talking with Fullmarx. I love his perspective on life. We're going to be having some more conversations in the future, hopefully. He said it himself. We've been messaging. He said that we're bros for life, so it's official. I'm going to hold him to his word. The next conversation that I'm going to be having is going to be sort of discussing the terminology that I'm going to be using. So going over, what is an ego? What do I mean by morality? What do I mean by subjective? What do I mean by objective? What do I mean when I say metaphysical? And maybe even learning a few terms myself. So that's going to be a really good one to watch, to sort of expand our vocabulary when we're talking about these really sort of complex and deep issues. And it will be good to sort of understand that a lot of these issues aren't necessarily black and white, as a lot of people think of it as, because when it's black and white, it's simple. It's going to be all sorts of greys, and we're going to try and muddle through this whole grey area to see what we can extract. The conversation is going to be with a chap called Oleg Altakov, and he's incredibly bright. I don't know if you have that term out in America. Incredibly smart. So yeah, stay tuned, guys. Keep watching. If you've got any feedback for me, let me know in the comments, whether you found it interesting, whether you found it boring, what you'd like to see different. And see you in the next one. Much love.